Hi guys, welcome to our podcast.
3 P's in a podcast.
I'm Chelsea.
I'm Jessica.
I'm Ashley, and here we go.
All right, welcome back, guys.
Hello. Hi.
Today I'm going to kind of take the lead. I'm doing the finder's call. I didn't even know this was a thing, like, at all. It was actually Zach, my fiance, that was like, you need to check this out. I will say the issue, it was very hard to find accurate information about it, but I think I did do a lot of scouring. There's also now, like, in the more present years, a lot more information has came out, which I just had to do a lot of reading. Anyways, we'll start with, the cult started kind of debatably between 1980s and the 1970s. The founder of it was Marion Petit. He was a high school dropout. He wanted to join the army at age 15, but you had to be 16 to join the army at this time. And so he went to his parents and was like, let's just lie about my age. Like, help me do this, and his parents were like, absolutely not. Like, it's 1 year. You can wait. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And so he was mad, and he actually, found a news clip article where, a kid had murdered his parents, and he just casually left that on the on the table for his parents to see. And so, needless to say, they let him go into the army at 15.
They're like, get out of here.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
go ahead if you want to go. And so he ended up going to the army for 3 years, and then I think he was a lifeguard or something during this time, and then he ended up going to the Air Force for 8 years and retired in 1955. He took all this money and never worked again. And so when he took all of this money after working and the military and stuff like that, that was when he really, during those years when he was working for him, he was really reading about different religions and mindsets. I know he read Mein Kampf by Hitler and all kinds of different religions and stuff. So he always had the goal of starting a community. And so he ended up getting a wife and 2 kids in DC. He also believed the common day person was fucked. So, like I said, he starts this around 1980, 1970. We don't really know much about the cult. When they do see people out, the guys are dressed very up. You don't really see the woman in the cult, and the kids always look dirty if you do see them. So, February 4th of 1987, an anonymous tipster said there was 2 men and there was with 6 unkept children. And when I say unkept children, they were skinny, they were malnourished, they were dirty, they had bug bites all over them, they just were not being taken care of, so someone called. And the 2 men were Douglas Armand and James Michael, and they said they were taking the kids to Mexico. They just stopped in Florida, as they were taking the kids, but then they really wouldn't explain anything else. So the
2 men with 6 kids,
and the kids aged from 2 to 11.
Oh my God.
So it was really young kids and older kids too. And so they of course arrested all these guys. They took all the kids in to talk to them and stuff. And okay. So it was really weird that they had all of these kids and they were unfed and stuff. And so, kind of give you a little bit background, because like I said, this was so hard to find when information came out and how they knew. So when this happened, I know Florida called DC and was like, hey, we have this people, this is going on, and DC's we've been trying to get them for years. Tell us what's going on. And so there's already a case that was out, and they were already kind of looking into it. So I'll give you a little background of what they knew about the Finders Cult.
What the people in DC knew?
Yes. And so the idea was that the parents wouldn't raise the kids, but the group would. And he believed that he had to start with children rearing, that you had to start in the womb. As he was doing kind of research, and it gets really weird. And he published this group, but all of it was never published. All of it was recruiting. So it was never published, come join this community. It was always just word of mouth of come join this community type thing. They were very flexible. They could pick up and just go anywhere. So if something happened, they would just pick up and like go somewhere else.
Were they living like in the woods or like?
Yeah, so they had like there was two main locations when I was researching that like they actually like went through and like got evidence from. One was in DC and one was in Virginia. I know they were like smaller houses and they had a lot of like acreage onto it also. So Marion, who was like the finder of it, he went by many names. So you'll probably hear me refer to him by all of them. So he was called the stroller, the student, the finder, and the game caller. You'll probably hear me refer to him as the game caller the most because that is really what he considered himself of, because he would do like games and stuff. So he would make up these games and the followers would like execute them. There was games for like the older people, there was games for the younger people. It's a very weird thing. So the idea at this time was there was roughly about 40 followers, and so that shifted the goal to making a new generation. And like I said, the idea was that everyone would pitch in to raise these kids, but it also almost seemed like they didn't want to raise these kids. Like everyone was very hands off. One of the things that they did is, like I said, they had all of this land, and in this land, there was like a cow pen and stuff. So all these adults went and they made like a fence around, like almost like this big square, and they put some bedding in it. They put a little bit of like things in it, and then they lowered kids down into it. It was Marion's two kids. So I believe one was a 3-year-old and one was a 4-year-old. So we're talking young kids. They left them in this like gated area for like a week, because the idea was that they wanted them to be as true to themselves without adult interaction, which is just crazy to me.
So crazy.
Like this was so wild.
So his like
own
goal in this is just controlling these people and having a following, I guess.
It's so crazy. Okay. So, kind of going back, they arrested these two men on child endangerment, and they took the kids into custody. There was 2 of the finder camps, which I said, and when they started to, they got these kids and they went to about, like, I don't know what word I'm looking for. So they got these kids and they went to the houses and kind of just like went through all of them, but all of the finders were gone. Like they found out these people were arrested and they picked up and left. So they left a lot of stuff there. They left a lot of computers, and on these computers there was a lot of documents for obtaining children for unspecified reasons. And then there was a 6 weeks of investigation that went through all of this. And there was they also found photos, and there was just a lot of like crazy stuff. So they found the unspecified things. They found multiple pictures of kids just naked. And they also found a lot of photos that looked like rituals of like kids naked or wearing white, like with slaughtered goats. Like it was just, crazy stuff. But this is also the 1980s. Satanic panic is full swing.
They very big like extremists back then.
Yes, this is when heavy metal music's coming out, so we're pushing that a lot. Like this is satanic music, music. And then there was also, which I don't know if you guys know this case, where there was like multiple children at the same daycare center that all claimed that they were being forced into like satanic rituals. And it was like this big investigation, ended up being all fake. Someone was whatever. And so satanic panic is in full swing right now. So of these like 6 kids, all of them really don't talk. There's only one little girl that talks, and she tells a lot. So she reveals that there was this whole game, and it was where all the kids would run up to the man and take their clothes off as fast as they could, and then they would go make new holes in the clothes, and then they would also do a game where they would take the clothes off the man and as fast as they could and then rechange them. It's
just like pedophile behavior. Like you're making it a game for the kids, but it's just weird.
Women.
Making it seem normal, like it's just all a game. It's so weird.
It's so weird. And then they showed them like common house items like a blender or a toaster or just things like that. These kids had no idea what these things were. They couldn't identify any of the children, and when they got the children, none of them were wearing underwear.
Wow, that's so sad. And they couldn't identify as kids. Like, never even knew they were, like...
Because they were just conceived and
yeah.
born and raised.
They're
in
not
this
even in the
cult.
system. That's so scary.
So Mary also revealed that they didn't go to school. And they also, in DC, that's what it was. So DC, they also had like a warehouse rented out. And it was like they would let people come and stay in it for like as low as $5 a night. So there was also like, this was for the finders where they would live, but it was also a lot of people in and out.
It's kind of like an income for them to get some sort of money.
They said they often, so like at the farms, the neighbors, when they were like interviewing and stuff, the neighbors were like, oh yeah, we often saw kids coming in and out in vans. Like there was multiple sets of kids and Florida police said they believed this wasn't a kidnapping, but it was more of like you had to give your kids up in order to like join this cult. It's kind of the vibe they were getting. It's like, give me your kids and then you can come be a part of this like cult.
And they're, wording it like, we're going to raise them as a community. Like, everybody takes care of everybody's kids.
Yes. So the craziest thing, too, that makes this a little bit weird, the kids were all placed in foster homes, and, like, I don't know how many were together and how many were apart, but they were all, like, I know not all of them were together. And they were receiving death threats at the foster homes. Their names, their locations, none of that was released to the public, and they received death threats at their foster home.
Is this from the community?
That's the thing. If it was the community, how did they know where the kids were?
Yeah.
So they were the only ones looking for them.
Yeah. So it was just like...
Are they all fathered by this leader?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I do think there's like separate dads. So that is one of the guys, I think it was maybe Douglas. He is said to have been like the father to one of the kids. I think it was Mary, and then the stepfather to another kid. The kids' names were like Mary, Max, BB, Benjamin, Honeybee, and John Paul. And yeah, this is very weird. Like they also, these calls were untraceable. So it was like they also knew how to not be traced, and it was just very weird. So around this time, we have a spokesman for the Finders come out. And actually, let me find my phone, because I have to show you guys this picture. This guy shows up, and he's in a disguise. And when I say he's in a disguise, like, it's crazy. Give me a second. Okay, so...
That is so weird, the mask.
Yes, that mask. And so this guy shows up and he's like, I'm going to talk to the police. And he does this interview and and kind of explain to you what's going on. And like, this is all a big misunderstanding. This is like satanic panic. The media blew it up. It's not that big of a deal. He said the kids were going to live in Tennessee, but there was a hiccup and they were vacationing in Florida. Which is really weird because the first two men that like got caught with them was like, we're going to Mexico. But no, we were going to live in Tennessee. And
we decided to go to Florida
We decided to go to Florida because there was a hiccup. And they called all the moms in San Francisco and got permission to do this.
What the heck?
What mom would let their kids just be with random strangers all the way in San Francisco?
It's obvious the police, something very weird is happening here.
Yes. He talks about the goat slaughtering, like that was just a teaching moment, like it was getting to winter and we had to slaughter the goats anyways, like this is going to be an education, like we're making our own textbooks and everything. It was just pictures for a textbook.
So technically they're not doing anything wrong, and they called the moms.
Yeah, like it's not that big of a deal. And when they're like, well, why do you have all these pictures of naked kids? And he's like, what parent doesn't have a naked picture of their kid?
I guess it depends on the context.
Yeah.
If you're just snapping pictures of your kids naked, standing in front of you, it's weird. If you're taking a picture of your kid in the bath, maybe not so weird.
Yeah, so that's why I was like, but obviously I did not ever look up to try to find, I don't think those were ever released, like the pictures. But, like, the way that it is, like, described, it does not feel like it was just, like, a kid in the bathtub. Like, it doesn't. And then that was also a thing. It said there was multiple pictures of, like, some of the kids, like, also naked again. So, like, why would you take... I don't know. It's just very weird. He denied that there was ever rituals involved. He's like, that's just misconstrued. Like, it's not like that. So he really didn't go anymore. And then it was Mike, not Douglas. He said Mike Holland was the father of Mary and stepfather to John Paul. So, like, there's even a parent with these kids, some of these kids. And that the other parents just fled because they were scared they were going to get arrested. These guys got arrested for, like, being part of this. Like, they were scared they were going to get arrested. That's why you haven't heard from any of the other parents and stuff. So this interview happens and they close the case.
It's like, what more could they have done?
Yeah,
but it's also like, keep an eye on this situation. It's weird.
Yes, it was very weird. So they closed the case, but also they had done a rape kit on these kids, and 2 of the rape kits were positive. These kids are aged 2 to 11.
So what were they saying about that? Why was it closed?
They just said that they never really mentioned, like, that rape kit being positive and stuff. They're just like, they could have not, like, it's just kind of
because
never
mind. That's like situation is like no, and the kids are like not speaking. So
yes. And so this is like, I will come back because some more information got released to the public. So this is just bare minimum, kind of what the public knows. The police basically said they had no substantial or physical evidence. And they talked to the 4 mothers in San Francisco. They explained the kids were dirty because they were camping and just didn't have access to enough food. And just, it all kind of got written off. It was very like, it'll be fine. So a few months pass, and Detective Martinez tries to reopen the case. He feels like this just doesn't feel right, it doesn't look right, he didn't like it. So he couldn't open the case without having more information. So he starts doing digging of his own. And he goes back to the houses in DC, where the finders were. And he starts digging through these again. And he realizes in these, like, things that all these finders just left at these abandoned houses, there is also documents on how to kidnap, purchase, buy, trade, and how to impregnate women. Kidnap, purchase, buy, trade children, and then how to impregnate women.
You said documents on this that he found?
Yeah, like, they had been typing up, like, this is, like, research to them.
Like, they think they're making, like, educational books or something.
He claims he also, on the computer, found a conversation with someone in Hong Kong about purchasing 2 children.
That's evidence, I feel like, right there.
Literally.
That's evidence of soliciting or something, like.
And he also realizes the finders is way bigger than what they thought. There's locations in London, Costa Rica, Africa, the Dominican Republic. There's even a few documents about terrorism, various explosives, along with detailed summaries of arrests, which is very weird because the arrest summaries were never released to the public. How did they get the arrest records on Mike and Douglas if they don't have inside connections?
Yeah.
Like, it's just very...
They must have inside connections.
So, like, I'll say Detective Martinez, he's also an FBI agent. So he was, like, also, like, he's the one that's pushing to open it again. So he also goes to the Virginia house, and this house has 2 kitchens, a hot tub, a sauna, a library, and a video room. This video room had a indoctrination center, which, if you don't know what that is, indoctrination is the process of encapsulating a person with ideas, attitudes, cognitive strategies, and the professional methodologies. So it's kind of like brainwashing, essentially. This room also had equipment to produce movies. Mind you, this is in the 80s. That was very hard to get to. Not a lot of people had access to stuff like that to make movies. So, very weird also. He also discovered more photos of the kids that look like rituals, and they're in chains in some of these photos. Very weird stuff.
Yes. That is not something that you could just write off to, we were teaching them how to slaughter a goat.
Yes.
Like, why are they in chains?
He also found graphic sexual content with the adult finder members. There was never photos of the children in these, like, adult, like, sexual things. So that, I guess, is an added bonus, but they may not have just had
Filmed
proof
that.
of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They also found a lot of pictures with, like, them dressed all in white with, like, various members, the adults, the kids, all that, and they'd be all dressed in white, and there would be, like, slaughtered goats around them, like another ritual, just looking photos. They found research that this was, they found research of them, like, responding to, like, ads of, like, dog walking and babysitting and, like, basically, like, trying to get into people's homes to, like, study, like, families more, which, I don't know, that just made me feel like, why are you guys trying to get in people's houses and then you have documents on how to steal children?
Yeah.
Like, I just did not like
You have
that.
connections all across the world,
Yes.
and that's weird.
Yes. So finally, April 2nd of 1987, he's like, I can reopen this case. I've got all of this evidence. There's no way. And so he goes and he meets with, like, the people, and he ends up meeting with a CIA agent. And they basically say, you can't open this back up. This is an internal matter with the CIA.
That's
And
weird.
So the CIA is like, I can't give you any information. The FBI is like, I can't help you because it's a CIA matter now, and it gets shelved again. The CIA doesn't touch it, doesn't do anything with it. It's an
But
internal
supposedly,
matter.
oh, that's so weird.
This is
Like, why is the CIA involved in covering whatever is happening here?
Yes, it is. So, this is where, like, it's just really crazy of, like, why the CIA, like, stepped in and was like, no, it's an internal matter. So Martinez really didn't like this answer. He really didn't like that he couldn't do anything, but he literally couldn't do anything. Like, it was taken to another state department, or, like, government department or whatever. So there was even a Florida, then there started having, like, other people kind of speak out on this. There was, like, a Florida senator that was like, oh yeah, they're scrambling in house over this. And Marion did an interview with the U.S. News to clear it up that it's not a cult, it's a community. When they asked him, what is the Finders? He said, the Finders is a company that freelances journalism, research, and promotes the new age of living. He also says the CIA was interested because his late wife and son were a part of the CIA. So that's why they were interested in his, like, cult, essentially. And let me see if I have any more on this. So the media did die down when the case got closed, but it was always just kind of odd. And it was always like, why is the CIA involved? I don't know exactly what year it was, but I know it was like the 2000s. They ended up, the Justice Department opened it back up, and that's when they did, like, Marion's interview and all of that, and, like, tried to clear it back up. And then it just disappeared again. The cult was said to kind of disperse around 2005 because Marion's wife died, and, like, some people were just falling out of it. However, there was a release, I could have swore I wrote down more of this stuff. There was a release of some more of, like, what Mary said when she was interviewed, and Mary ended up saying that she would, like, they were always on the road. She never knew where she was going. She was always around strange people, and there was 1,000 people. So this was, like, supposed to be, like, 40 people, and she's like, there was always thousands of people at the places that, like, I went, like, and so,
how old was? Do you know about how old she was when she was interviewed?
No, I know she had to be one of the older ones,
but no more than, like, 11 or 12, maybe.
No, like I said, the ages were, like, 2 to 11, and I would say she was, like, one of the 2 oldest ones.
I'm wondering, like, you know, kids, like, how many there really were versus what she is can comprehend as people. And I did think about
that when I wrote that down. I was like, it could have just been,
there was
like,
probably more than 40 maybe, but it could be like 100 or 200. And she's like, there was thousands of people. You know what I mean? You never know, but that's
Yeah. They also, so in 2017, police interviews were released, and she basically also stated that like they all followed Marion. Like he was the leader. He was so like even more like confirming that this was a cult. It wasn't just a community of people that came together. Like Marion was the gang leader.
Yeah.
He was the ring. She said that they ate goats. They had multiple cats that just went missing. John Paul, which John Paul was also like technically the stepson of one of the guys. When he was like taken from them, he had a bunch of bite marks down his arm too. And they were like undisclosed of like they didn't know if it was animals or if it was
I was gonna
humans.
say like bites or like bites like mosquito bites, like actual bite
It was
marks.
bites. They said it was either animal or human bites, but they couldn't distinguish which one, and it was all up and down his arm. And like that even more so that came out in 2017. That was never released to the public during that time, but that's even more like that was abuse.
Yes.
Like I get like not all the other things that were released public at that time. Like I get like the rituals kind of got written off, and everyone takes photos of their kids, but to have physical bite marks on a kid and that many, like some kind of neglect at least is going on. So they also released that the van that they found, so these kids were all living in a van with like 6 kids and 2 adults were living in a van. They didn't really at the time say what was in the van, but in 2017 we got the release, and there was radios, a Chinese to English dictionary, Trojan condoms, more nude photos of the children that was with them, and yeah, like that was released. And then in 2019, the FBI released a I think it might be 600 pages of documents on this, everything that they had on it, because like as time went on, like around that 2017 when all this was released, like it started gaining traction again, and people were like, why wasn't this? And so now it's kind of, I don't know, like you haven't heard anything on the finders. There's nothing else out there.
That's why I'm surprised it was such national news. And after so many years, they probably just release everything they have because it's like our right as the citizens to see. And if they're closing the case, then we should be able to see everything that they have, you know?
Yes. And so, like, I don't know. So it has caused a lot of conspiracies.
I'm sure.
Was this sex trafficking?
It sounds like it.
That's what it honestly sounds like. And that was the whole time, like, the more research I did, I was like, this sounds like sex trafficking that was covered up by the government. And even if, like, the CIA, like, I'm not saying this was, like, a huge grand scheme, but they had his wife and his son and then the CIA enough that they were getting like...
It's either something that they are looking into because it's on such a grand scale and they're keeping hush-hush, or it's something that they're covering up because it's on such a grand scale. You know what I mean?
Yes. And there's also conspiracies that this was, like, this is the one that Zach really believes. So, like, we were talking about it last night. He's like, I think they were working on, like, mind control. He's like, I think they had all of these people and they were working on mind control and seeing what they could, and the CIA wanted to keep that, like, covered up. And I was like, I'm still feeling sex trafficking, but yeah, that very well, it could be both.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just...
Yeah, it could be mind control, including sexual acts.
Yes.
With, you know.
Yes. I don't know, like, obviously, like, it is said the finders kind of dispersed and it's not that big of a thing, but, like...
Is the man still alive today?
I'm pretty sure he died. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure he's died too. But, like, there's people that obviously had to be in this that have left it and they've never spoke out really about it.
That's so weird.
It's just, it's odd.
It's so weird that the press hasn't nailed down exactly who these people are, or haven't found them to, like, rush interview them, offer them money for interviews, nothing. Like,
yeah, this was such a, that's why, like, Zach's like, you should do the finder's call. And I was like, the what? And it was just every single time I'm like, this is wild. Like,
that is so weird.
And it almost makes me a little worried because there's obviously sex trafficking still going on out there. Like, what if that was just, like...
a part of it.
Yeah, a part of it, and, like, it's just moved to, like, a different name or whatever, because... I know the CIA even, like, they've came out several times and been like, we had no involvement in this. This wasn't a cover-up. Like, we just had connections a little bit here, but it wasn't that. and they're like, see, we send all of our kids to this all of our trainers to like this universal company, and that company came out and was like, yes, like we do this, we do training, like this isn't a front company, blah blah blah. But then there was someone in the CIA that was like, yeah, they send us to that company and they send us to Finders and Corporation. Yeah,
That's weird.
Yeah, so I don't know. It was
That like stuff gives me the EBGBs. Like just thinking of like things that we see on the surface could be so much bigger than what we even realize. Like,
yes, it was very much like the more I researched it, I was like, this was a very well done scheme of whatever it was.
Mhm.
Whether it was, I mean, it kind of had to be a little culty with what was going on, but I don't know, with how much sacrifice that was going on, how much child trafficking it seems like, and then mind control on top of it. It's just weird.
I think the possible government involvement is what threw me through a loop. Like I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that's when I was like, CIA ties to it.
Yeah.
What? But it was
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yes, it was an interesting.
I'm like wanting to go like on TikTok now and see what people are saying.
Not a lot of people still aren't talking. Like it got some government traction, but like I tried to go to TikTok and like do research, and I just got like a couple videos on like brief information.
That's so weird.
I know. I will say YouTube has a lot of good videos on it, but yeah, it was just. It's an interesting.
So
piece.
interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, is that it for our true crime case then? Thank you guys for watching, and we will be back next week with another true crime. It's Chelsea's turn to talk about one. So do you know what you're doing yet?
I think I'm going to do a hometown one. I was thinking there was a Preble County type of Preble Penny.
Is that what you're going to do?
Yeah.
That's the case you're doing?
Yeah.
Did you know that my favorite podcasters help solve that case?
Yes.
Yes, I love them. Derek said, shout out Crime Weekly. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. See you next week.